fairly long list of people on the panel who are going to speak to you about these different aspects. Before I start that process, I would like to just mention a couple of points. The India-Myanmar economic relationship, if described in its past terms, was of a different dimension altogether. You had a very strong presence of Indian commercial interests and banking interests in the Burma of old, all of which disappeared in the 50s and early 60s. So it's not that doing business in Burma or Myanmar is something that is totally de novo. There has been a past. There were reasons why that ended, and hopefully in the new dynamics that now govern the relationships between the two countries, there are different openings, both in terms of opportunity and also as a challenge, because it requires a totally different type of business opportunity and dealing with that business opportunity. Now, I'm sure in the process of the discussion that will take place now, both from the side of Myanmar representatives and the Indian representatives, we will get a fairly good idea of what is the existing opportunity, what are the kind of actions that should be taken, and what can be done in terms of partnerships. So I will now throw the floor open to the panelists, and if I may, sir, start with you, Mr. Fuzam Kin Pao, chairperson of the Chin National Party, and you're going to, I believe, discuss also India-Myanmar joint ventures and border situation. On to you, sir.
Yeah, Bengalava, everybody. So thank you very much to have a chance to make my presentation. Maybe it will be different from others people, because I am a cartoonist. I work more than 30 years as a freelance cartoonist in the newspaper, so that I bring some special cartoons to present here, and after then, when I go back to my hometown, I will send to some newspaper, so that it will be interesting about that. So my name is Zozam, and this is my pen name. But my identity card and my passport, my name is Sam Chin Pao. But this Sam Chin Pao, even my mother cannot, remember. So that this Zozam is my pen name. Since I was young, I am very fond of cartoonists and artists, so that I become an artist. And I publish how to draw caricature, how to draw comic strip, how to draw cartoon for young people. And when the censorship was very strong, I was always censored. But now, my politics cartoons are now different from the past time. So my name is Zozam, and the founder and the chairman of the Chin National Party, and also the spokesperson for Nationalities Brotherhood Federation, not Islamic Brotherhood, but at the same time, we create this brotherhood, but lots of friends of other countries, whenever they visit us, and they told, especially from the women, why not sisterhood? Now I would like to change my group, my party, like Nationalities Brother and Sisterhood Federation. So that's all. Thank you very much. So my title is Joint Venture of India and Myanmar, but in this context, I divide in 4 portions about. One is economic opportunities and challenges in Myanmar, and second is democratization today in Myanmar, and the ethnic conflict issues, and the last is what the political changes mean for the Myanmar Chin people. So this cartoon, maybe you can have some message, you can get it. So the very old truck is climbing on the mountain, and beside of a landslide mountainous ranges road, and the driver is old enough, and beside him is sitting a lady, very beautiful, very talkative, and always with flowers in her head. So, and the truck, I call it this democratization mechanism. Democratization mechanism. This old truck, and it's full load that, and overall the truck, lots of parliamentary people, I think, and also too many people in the bus, a very old bus, and Second World War truck, So, and it is going to start, and smoke, boom, boom, boom. It's trying to make, starting engine. And in this, the lane, the road to democracy, it's very meaningful. It's very far away, but a long journey. They have to start in one step, a step. Even they have to start now. They are starting. So, and this is the one thing. And another picture is an old man is like our General Tenzing. Now he take off the uniform as old man Tenzing now. No more General old man Tenzing. And he's climbed up on the state that called Myanmar democracy. Myanmar's democracy. Myanmar's way to democracy. Not Myanmar way to socialism. So, and then it's in his bag, he took some money from yuan and dollars and some jets, and there was the other side was Senyen Nuan Pamu. It's a poverty of our today situation in our country. He would like to help those people, but the landslide is occurring now. So he think that, may I turn back, or or backsliding, or I don't know. He has no more idea to solve this problem. And the last, this is maybe very interesting about it. So big cats are playing a mice, a beautiful mice, talkative, with flowers, and very popular, and very energetic, and very lovely mice was played by the big cats. So, and according to the horoscope, these big cats, they are playing when and how, and when will start, or when will stop, and when will bite, So that is the situation, the current situation in our country. So these 3 pictures can tell lots of words instead of reading my presentation, I think. But I try, Only 5 minutes I will be made very shortcut, So this meeting will be providing us a lot of lessons learned, good experiences in regard of diverse political, economic, and social arena. It will also reminded us mutual interests and benefits. I would like to tell you that we will be taking home the meeting and the conference outcomes so that we can be sharing the information and the outcomes to our parties, organizations, and our people. And this will be very helpful to build and transform the nation of democratic state. We have to accept that with the voice of changes in political and economic spheres, there suddenly arises some awareness to draw a lump sum attention from international communities. As we all know, Myanmar is one of the youngest ASEAN countries, lying between China, India, Bangladesh. We should be keeping in mind the importance of geopolitical of Asia. As the result of resource-rich country, Myanmar was abused by other countries sometimes. Today in Myanmar, resource benefit sharing of Myanmar people and the international companies are very crucial. Our party is facing the issues with our neighboring country, China, day to day. For this instance, India should be taking lessons learned. For example, how is our Myanmar government working with Chinese companies? So we should learn lessons from that things. And they always have some hidden agenda working together with international company. That also we don't need to have this kind of hidden agenda working together with Burmese government, our Myanmar government. This is one thing. And we are also aware that our neighboring countries have been seeing dramatically changes in recent decades. Those changes affected Myanmar also. The changing of global political economy, Myanmar also has to follow the changes step by step, slow and steady. By some circumstances, people become the victims. Some programs and projects are being in dangerous situation for the local people about environmental risks or damages. Example like Kaladan multimodal project, which is working together with India companies. So we would like to mention it. So local communities in general have neither been consulted nor well informed through our various stages of the project. And communities have no clear knowledge on the exact plan, and they have never been given any information or opportunity to participate in the process and express their opinions. It means no transparency at all. And construction of land road from Palawa to Indian border, our very thick forests in Chin Hills will be damaged more or less by the road construction and due to unofficial timber production. That's mean I have experienced the former ambassador from India to Burma, and I meet 2 times about this story. We made discussion about them, and his understanding is the other way. But my understanding is, if India is constructing the road crossing our forests, maybe some thick trees will be cutting down. But it is not the most important thing. Now, today, this forest is keep silent. If you made a construction and then if become the highway road to international, so the timber thief will be come inside from international, so that it will be one day or one night, my forest will be finished, and it will be pulling far away from my land to maybe American or England or any part of international country by ship using this Kaladan road. Now, this is the most important thing I would like to mention. And deforestation will occur sooner or later in Chin State. So that we have to say who will be held accountable for local communities. Right to information, right to participate, right to express their opinions, and right to live without fear, and right to protect their habitat. And also we would like to recommend to the Indian government to provide economic development assistance to local communities to ensure that they have the capacity to benefit from new opportunities that will come with the Kaladan project. The Indian government should provide technical and financial assistance to ensure that farmers and entrepreneurs from Arakan State and Chin State, it will be able to access markets in India's northeast region as well as the Indian subcontinent through the Kolkata port. And in this context, these Kalatan projects is very important for us also. And we are thinking very far away than, maybe you have thought. Because we don't want to be only like a stepping stone, only crossing our land. Instead of, we need some support from you, from the Indian government, like our development purpose, our road, new road construction, especially we really need Matupi to Palewa road. Since many years ago, we don't have road. So it's only, up to now, it's only a mule road. So a horseback, it's only very, very rough and, very tiny lane we have. So we would like to ask Indian government that why not you don't help to construct this special town. We would like to connect Matupi, Palewa, and then the whole Chin State can be connected, and it will be very helpful for our connectivity through Kaladan River and not only Mizoram State, but also the whole Chin State. Even we can go to Manipur and Nagaland up to. So the most important part we have to make road construction is between Palewa and Matupi. That is very important. So here I don't mention in my presentation. And the border issue, I would like to explain about the Mizoram State and our Chin State. We are not sure that this information having intention of building fence and wall along the borderline. And now, in this last month, there was a very interesting information comes to us that our Manipur brothers who land also, they are trying to make a fencing between our Myanmar and India, and this is, we don't know that it is true or untrue. But our Chin people always thinking that we Mizo Chin people and Manipurians are from one family stock, and we have the same blood, and maybe we have the same feathers, so that we think that we have the same culture, the same language, the same history, so that we'll be confused and unhappy to be living in partition with walls and fence. So that we hope for that we have to consider to help us for solving this issue also. And the policy of India's look is policy, and bridging policy to Myanmar could not meaningful if we have fence or walls or between us for partition two countries. So we don't agree at all to have fence or wall between our India and Myanmar. That is, I would like to frankly explain about this, And And this kind of conference will bring us, very helpful for our democratic government of Myanmar and positively impact for all the stakeholders involved by bringing about peace and development in the region also, And this kind of conference and meeting will encourage and empower the ethnic people of Myanmar, not only these people, but also from the Northeast Ethnic Brotherhood of India also, we will have very, good encouragement and empowerment from this kind of meeting, And for peace process, I also personally involved so many times for this having peace process for Burma. But up to now, we cannot get a win-win situation. So Myanmar is well known for its longest civil war since 1948. The government in power since then planned and tried to root out by force the nationalities, ethnic freedom fighters and their companions. And this also I would like to explain about from Nagaland. Maybe it is good or not good, I don't know. Mr. Fizo, General Mu, and my uncle Colonel Sonkopao, they are very old comrades. Together they were involved armed group. Even my uncle, and they were trying since long ago to create a Christian united Christian country together with Northeast India part and together with our Chin state. That is the past time history I would like to mention. But just our ambassador just explained about is true. So now we are only thinking for federalism, no more secession, no more to get, independent from our Myanmar. So this I would like to tell. So we are only thinking for this federalism. And we are always interesting to study federalism from India, because we don't need to go very far away from Myanmar, like to USA or Germany, because our neighboring country, the closest friend, and we can get some lesson learned, especially for federalism, so that it's really very useful if we can have, if we have any chance to study federalism from India, because India, diversity, people and diversities, living together, and you can live harmony. So this is a very good experience for us. So we would like to study federalism for our nations from India. That's also a very important point one. And regarding your Look East policy, our people and our party, my party, Chin National Party, has been setting up a policy which we just call that Look West policy of Chin National Party. So why I have to look east always to China? China make too much problem to us. We still more than enough problem. So we'll be trying to look west. It means we would like to connect with India. It means Look West policy. We just made a very beautiful lake on the mountain, Rik, near the Aizol, so that it's very beautiful place. But up to now, there is not enough tourists visiting there. So you are invited to visit our beautiful lake to our Chin State. It was located in Chin State. on the mountain lake. So it will be helpful, and it will make it the real connectivity as a partner of our ecotourism. And also direct investment, foreign direct investment, FDI, will be very important for us. Because as we all know, our Xinjiang people, many young people, they have no job in our state, so that they are traveling along Malaysia, Thailand, and even here, India, But if we can have some FDI in our state, like, there are many pine wood, we have lots of, and quality woods we have. So we can have this factory for unfinished wood, not that locked, So this kind of factory you can have invest in our place for furnitures and housing, and for the girls, we need some garment factory, because our small girls, they attended schooling up to 9 standard and 10 standard, and because of having no money, they cannot attend the university level, so that they stop their school in 9 standard and 10 standard. So we would like to give them job. This is like garment factory, and this you can make a very good. It's also very, I think it will be successful. And this is for FDI especially. And also, our global merchandise trade relations, India is the second largest export partner after Thailand. But that is the IMF data, it is only 12.8% now. 12.8. So that, but the import from India, there's no data at all, But the export from Burma is only 12.8. I think it's only bean, or I don't know. So we have to create much more import from Myanmar, like maybe rice, or we will have a good rice, Good. Former time we don't have, but now we have special rice, for export quality. So it is also interesting to import rice from Burma also, for India purpose, So that we have to improve our import and export sector. That I would like to mention. And there are many more sectors that India and Myanmar could work together as partner, like development of private industrial sector, leading towards stabilizing of commodity prices and higher living standard of the people. At the same time, it should be promoted small and medium scale industries, which will be creating more employment opportunity. So we are really longing for the Indian people's support for our every sector. So what I would like to tell is, your supporting is very effective for our people. So just I would like to conclude my message. I would like to express my sincere gratitude to you all. We hope and really expect India, our neighboring country, our closest and most trusted friend, will keep it assistant for our Chin people, Chin state, and the whole Myanmar social, political, and economic endeavor. So thank you very much.
I'd like to thank the Honorable Member of Parliament and Chairman of the Chin National Party, You made some very, very telling points. I just wanted to check, has this been handed over to the Secretary this morning?
The book, yeah, we have.
This
yeah,
has been
we have.
handed over.
And special letters from my people I brought from Myanmar.
Okay.
And it's very good chance I got it.
So I'm sure that there will be a,
Yeah.
a response from them and clarifications. There's just one clarification which may be important for the Indian side to understand. Those are the reservations that you've expressed on the business style, or is it the business style or the way in which business is being done by China that they should take into account and not repeat? Because you have made a reference to this twice. Would it be possible for you to just explain what exactly you had in mind?
As my experience, in this year, in 19 May, some professors from China were invited to explain about the Lebanon copper mine purpose. And I also was invited in that team. And because I was trained metallurgy engineering in Germany, and I attend 2 years course in Germany, so that I have some experience about mining purpose, metal purpose, so that we made a big discussion in Myanmar Peace Center, and that place was specially placed for advisory people, technicians who are gathering, and it can be raised words to president and other gentlemen, so that I directly point out that all contracts are finished, and I got information from somewhere that mega project is 35, more than 35 projects we have now, but we don't know that it is true or not, but we know from outside that also we have no transparency at all. How many projects we have with China and who are joining together with this team? That's also very interesting for us. So that, and I pointed out that you professors, you know that in Lebanon mountain, there are lots of copper are there, and together copper, there must be something inside. So you Forbes, you know, I know, but my president and Aung San Suu Kyi didn't know. No problem. This gentleman and gentle lady didn't know, but my people do not know. Every copper mine produce some amount of gold. That's I learned from Germany. That's my trade. As a metallurgy scholar, I learned that, so that I pointed out. So, professors, I know what you are doing now. You are not transparency, so that please tell this to your government, and please also tell my president. And this is my comment to this mine. And I make suggestion 2 points. One is the contract period. Most are 60 years. 60 years. And others 30 years. And you know, like this. So I would like to make half, I would like to amend that contract. I would like to live for my next generation. I don't want to use everything in my time. So that I pointed out that we have to make amendment this contract. And then the Chinese professor, they told me, this has been done. The contract has been signed. And I replied, okay, we have just elected our president. So what I know to be a president is to make amendment contracts which are not good for the people. Otherwise, to resign from presidency, I told you, very frankly, so that the president's duty is to make amendment for contracts. 60 years to 30 years, 30 years to 15 years like this, I give some ideas and suggestions. And last month, it's come up, some amendments from the biggest Lebanon copper mine. But last week, 2 weeks, I was traveling to my nickel mine. That was my constituency in Chin Hills. The biggest nickel mine was found in my Chin Hills. And also, it was already given to China, Chinese company. So that kind of things, So whatever we are doing for this mega project or, huge project, it has to be very, systematically and, transparency to our people is very, very important. So I made consultation with my 14 villages beneath the mountain last week, and nobody liked to explore this, to make production from this nickel mine. Nobody. They have fear. So that this kind of things, But government, it's very easy to talk. Even my president, he didn't know what are exploring from this mountain. But on paper, they agree. They made agreement very easily. So this kind of things, we have to make it very carefully and, very seriously mentioned. We have to need it. That's I would like to.
Thank you, sir.
Tell.
You made some very important points, and I'm sure these will be of great use to the Indian business community also. May I now, where the hell is that paper? Okay. May I call on Dr. Tinsway to give us his presentation?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, His Excellency Mr. Malik. I'll begin with some good news and followed by some realities. Economy of Burma is emerging as an estimated nominal GDP of 51.93 billion, a purchasing power adjusted GDP of 83.74 billion, and the real growth rate is estimated at 5.5% since 2011 fiscal year. In that year, Burma embarked on a major policy of reforms, including currency exchange rate, anti-corruption, foreign investment laws, and taxation. Foreign investment increased from 300 million in 2009-10 to 20 billion in 2010-11. That is 667% increase. Government also relaxed import restrictions and abolished export taxes. 2012 Union Parliament Law number 21, Burma Foreign Investment Law. For the first year's operation, you will not be required to pay income taxes. Tax exemption on the revisited profits, those who invested within 1 year. Accelerated depreciation assets, 50% reduction in taxes if your goods are produced for export. You can deduct research and development expenses, no custom duties on materials used for initial construction, no tax on raw materials imported in first 3 years, and no commercial tax on goods produced for exporting. Oil and gas. This is a major business in Burma, or economy of my country. Myanmar Oil and Gas Enterprise MOGE is the sole operator of oil and gas exploration and production, as well as domestic gas transmission through 1,009-kilometer offshore pipeline grid. The Urena project is a project of Adman Sea and to carry natural gas to Thailand. Sino-Burma pipeline, Chao Phu and Kunming in Yunnan province of China. Norwegian company Seadrill is involved in offshore oil drilling. Burma exported 3.5 billion worth of gas, mostly to Thailand in the fiscal year up to March 2012. Oil exploration license for 18 of Burma's offshore oil blocks have been released on January 18 this year. Tourism. Since 1992, the government has encouraged tourism. Until 2008, fewer than 750,000 tourists entered in the country annually. But there has been substantial growth over the past year. In 2012 last year, 1.06 million tourists visited the country, and 1.8 million are expected to visit by the end of this year. FDI. In the first 9 months of 2012 and 2013, Burma has received investment of USD 794 million. China has the biggest investment in commitments for this fiscal year. Total foreign trade for 2012 last year was recorded USD 13.3 billion. It was 27% of GDP. I'll come with microeconomic trend. Though the foreign investment has been encouraged, it has so far met only moderate success. This is because foreign investors have adversely affected by the government policy. Public sector enterprises remain highly inefficient, and also privatization efforts are stalled. The major ongoing problem is the failure to achieve monetary and fiscal stability. Thus, Burma remains a poor country with no improvement of living standards for the majority of the population over the last decade. The main causes of continued sluggish growth are poor government planning, internal unrest, minimal foreign investment, and large trade deficits. Currently, Burma has attracted investment from Thailand, Malaysia, Philippines, Russia, Australia, India, Singaporean companies. But trade with U.S. amounted 243.56 million as of February 2013, accounting for 15 projects and just 0.58% of total. Now I will continue with the ground realities. In the first ever countrywide study, the Burmese government found that 37% of the population are unemployed. An average of 26% live in poverty. Inflation is a serious problem in Burma. Inflation is around about 30.1% between 2005 and 2007. The workshop organized by NLE in April 2007 concluded that skyrocketing inflation was impeding economic growth. Burma currently has a euro exchange system with a market rate around 200 times below the government rate. In 2011, the government enlisted the aid of IMF to evaluate options to reform currency exchange rate system, to stabilize domestic foreign exchange trading market and create economic distortions. The major agricultural produce is rice, which covers about 60% of the country's total cultivated land area, and it accounts for some 97% of the total food grain production by weight. Rubber plantations are also promoted, but lack of an educated workforce skilled in modern technology contributes to growing problems of the economy. Private sector dominates in agriculture, light industry, transport activities, while the military government controls energy, heavy industry, and rice trade. Today, Burma lacks adequate infrastructure. Railroads are old and rudimentary, with a few repairs since their construction in late 19th century. Highways are normally unpaved, except in major cities. Energy shortage is common throughout the country, including Rangoon. More than 45 million of the country's population is without electricity, with 70% of people living in the rural areas. Burma is then the largest producer of methamphetamines, a psychostimulant drug in the world. The precursor medicine comes from India, so-called pseudoephedrines. Bags of ephedrine tablets goes through official border trade and Mizoram Point. Illegal narcotics have generated 1 to 2 billion USD in export annually, with the estimates of 40% of countries' foreign exchange coming from drugs. Major traffickers are allowed to penetrate other sectors of Burmese economy, including banking, airline, hotels, infrastructure industries. Their investment in infrastructure have allowed them to make more profits, facilitate trafficking and money laundering. The advice for those who want to do business in Burma, I will give a sample of cost of labor in Burma as of 2012 last year. Blue-collar unskilled worker gets $100 per month. Semi-skilled workers, $150 a month. Supervisor or team leaders, $200 to $300. University graduates with knowledge of computers and English will get $300 to $500. And in Rangoon, average rent per month, apartment 1 bedroom, city center, $570. Apartment 3 bedroom, city center, $970. Average apartment price per square meter in Rangoon downtown is $1,230. Okay, office space in Burma. There are only 3 office towers in Burma: Sukura Tower, FMI Center, and Center Point. Sukura is completely occupied. Property reserved for future business district is going at 4,000 USD per square meter. Rangoon's total stock office space is only 63,000 square meters, which represents less than 1% of 8.1 square meter office space in Bangkok, in Thailand. As demand by foreign companies increased, the average rental rates for office space in 2012 year-to-date jumped 50%. In downtown area, office rental rates currently exceed $50 per square meter per month. Retail supply in Rangoon is also very low compared to peers in Asia Pacific. Although at over 150,000 square meter, it is significantly more than office space. And then cost of construction in Burma. Burma's construction sector grew at an average rate of 11.5% annually from 2007 to 2011. Performance in the infrastructure and residential over 2007 to 2011 and account for 78% of total construction value. Construction industry has estimated at the value close to $3 billion US. There are expectations for sector to reach $4.2 billion in 2016. During 2007 to 11, industry grew CAGR of 11.5% in CHF terms and 25.4% in USD terms. Residential construction was the largest market in Burma construction industry with a value of $1.5 billion. Average residential property rise in Rangoon has surged plus 39% during 2011 and 12, increasing from 61 per square feet at the beginning of the year and 85 per square feet. I will refer to CIA World Factbook about Burma. Burma, a resource-rich country, suffers from pervasive government controls, inefficient economic policy, and rural poverty. A major banking crisis 2003 shuttered the country's 20 private disrupted the economy. Though the Burma government has a good economic relation with its neighbors, better investment and business climates and improved political situations are needed to promote foreign investment, exports, and tourism. The level of international aid to Burma ranks among the lowest in the world. Burma received only 4 per capita in development assistance and compared the average to 42.3. Banks in Burma will likely allow international banks to operate by 2015. Recently, I read my friend's Burma Time journal, Exim Bank opened in Rangoon this week. The 9th. Yeah, the 9th. Yeah, in this issue, it is the news there. So authorities plan to complete amendments to laws on banking, insurance, foreign exchange operations. Burma's financial system remains primitive by international standards, and the country only got its first ATM. The country also employs a confusing multiple exchange rate system, though the government is widely expected to change the system in favor of a single entry system very soon. There are 7 government banks in Burma and 11 private banks in Burma. Okay, finally, I will give some bullet points. Burma's foreign trade hit nearly 5 billion in the first 3 months of fiscal year 2012 and 2013. Of foreign trade, over 1 billion were gained through border trade. Of total trade volume, the export amounts to 2.3 billion, while the import amounts to 2.41 billion. Natural gas topped the country's export, which nearly 800 million, followed by agricultural produce, jam, forests, and marine products. In the fiscal year 2011-12, Burma's foreign trade reached 18.15 billion, of which the export took 9.09 and import 9.053. GDP US 2010 estimate is 54.416 billion. GDP PPP 88.751 billion of international dollars. Real GDP growth 2009 is 5.1, the same 5.1, 5.1, 2012 6%. Inflation 8.2, 8.2, 4.2, 5.8. Export major partners for Burma are Thailand number 1, China number 2, India number 3, Japan number 4. Imports partners, China number 1, Thailand number 2, Singapore number 4, South Korea 5, Japan, and then India, I think, number 10th. Conclusion. Ladies and gentlemen, the figures or the data as consumption for the people who are sitting in the AC rooms. But the people on the street, the people in the agriculture fields and at the work sites consume real edible rice or maybe noodles. The quality and quantity of food Burmese people are having today is more or less the same as those of years ago. The foreign as well as domestic investment in education and health sectors are very, very marginal. Even 5-star hotels like Apollo or Medenda or advanced learning institutions built by foreign countries may not really help the health status and education level of general population of Burma. Only when we have physically healthy, mentally strong, intellectually competent people who are living in an environmentally friendly houses, provided that mothers die less, infants survive more, then I will say economy becomes better whoever rules in Burma. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. That was a very useful enunciation of policies and data. Now, I have 4 speakers, and we are running out of time. So can I ask all 4 of you, starting with you, Mr. Kupaswamy, to try and confine yourselves to approximately 10 minutes? Please go ahead.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Ambassador. Thanks for giving me an opportunity. Even otherwise, 15 minutes is too little for this subject of India-Myanmar trade and economic relations. Now that has been curtailed to 10, so I'll have to take a telegraphic approach to the whole issue. Good. I'll start from the year 1970 when we signed a border trade agreement with Myanmar. The trade has been steadily increasing, but for a small decline in the 80s. India is the fourth largest trade partner, leaving behind, of course, China, Singapore, Thailand. My friend Tinsway has already told you about it. But at the same time, the trade cannot be actually fathomed because of the reason of unofficial trade as well as trade through third countries like Singapore. Our well-being of the northeastern states will definitely improve if we improve the trade ties with Myanmar. The availability of natural gas, as Tinsway also has pointed out, is a big thing which we'll have to take, especially in view of the fact that we are importing more than 70% of our oil and 50% of our gas requirements. Now, during the recent visit of Anand Sharma, our Commerce and Industry Ministry, a lot of ground has been covered, and we have made some important announcements and improvements in our trade. I'll come to it a little later. Now, according to the EXIM, India has extended several lines of credit valued at US $247 billion to Myanmar for various development projects, including upgrading and setting up of railway projects, petrochemical complex, OFC links, refinery products, automobile assembly, and whatnot and whatnot. Now, coming to bilateral trade, agricultural sector dominates the bilateral trade. As since morning we have been talking, Myanmar contributes to nearly 1/5 India's imports of timber. What India's exports are basically pharmaceuticals, steel and iron products, electrical machinery, mineral oil, rubber articles, plastics. As Pinak Chaudhary had pointed out, pharmaceuticals, over 13 pharmaceutical companies, Indian companies, are in Myanmar. The trade balance is very much in favor of Myanmar, though after the last World Trade Conference, Economic Forum, the Indian government is aiming to step up the trade volume to US $3 billion, which is currently around 1.9 and all that by 2014-15. Border trade. Major exports into Myanmar are cotton yarn, auto parts, soya bean meal, and pharmaceuticals. Imports from Myanmar, betel nut, dried ginger, green moong, turmeric roots, resin, black matpe, that is our urd dal, turmeric roots, resin, and medicinals. We signed a border agreement with Myanmar in 1994, and as already pointed out, we have two operational border points, one in Manipur and More Thamu, Mizoram, Saukathar, and a third one proposed for a long time in Nagaland. The border trade around 10 to 22 million, though it is probably higher if the huge unaccounted informal trade is taken into account. Foreign direct investment, India has jumped to the 10th largest investor. We were 13th till recently. And our investment is about 273 million out of a total investment of 44.4 billion from 32 countries in our 520 odd projects. Trade promotion activities, we are in a big way since 2002. In March 2012, we staged an India product show representing 19 Indian companies. In August, both the Indian Chamber of Commerce and the Myanmar Chambers of Commerce met with specifically from northeastern states. September 2012, FICCI as well as the thing, we staged another India show. October 2012, entrepreneurs from India and Myanmar met at the United Manufacturers and Chambers of Commerce in Yangon. We had another India-Myanmar business show and a B2B meeting in 2013. April 2013, we had a B2B meeting with the Calcutta Chamber of Commerce and the Yangon Chamber of Commerce. Institutional arrangements, we have a joint task force with the Union Myanmar Federation. We have a joint trade committee. We have met 4 times up till now. About agreements, we have a bilateral investment promotion agreement. We have a double tax avoidance agreement. And Myanmar is also a partner with the India-ASEAN Trade in Goods Agreement. We are also giving duty-free tariff preference to Myanmar as it's still LDC. A joint trade and investment forum was held for the first time in June 2013 after the World Economic Trade Forum, which was jointly inaugurated by our Commerce Minister as well as the Myanmar Minister. It is significant to note that President Thein Sein, during his last visit to India, had a closed-door session with our CII in December 2012. I'll quickly rattle the projects. Much has been talked about the Kaladan multimodal project. I would not like to say much, except that it is going to cost $214 million. It's a joint venture expected to be completed in 2015. Among roads, most of you must have heard about the India-Myanmar Friendship Road of 160 kilometers from Tamu, Kalewa, Kalemu. It has already been done. It has been resurfaced also. Presently, we are going to undertake building or repairing about 71 bridges on this road. Re-Tidim Road also we have taken up. Now, the important project is this trilateral highway India-Myanmar-Mesot. India is responsible for the Tamu-Yogi section, as already pointed out by somebody. The Indian part is nice. The Thailand part is nice. Much of it has to be done in the Myanmar part. There are also some proposals about reviving the Lido Road, or properly known as the Stillwell Road, but much has not happened in this construct. The Special Economic Zone, India has offered a 150 million package towards the establishment of a Special Economic Zone in Sittwe, which is the capital of the stripe-strewn Rakhine State. Agriculture, India has assisted Myanmar with $10 million for supply of agricultural machinery. We have supplied them tractors, combine harvesters, power tillers, and other implements. We have set up an advanced center for agricultural research and education care and a rice biopark in a place called Ezin near Naypyidaw. Banking. United Bank of India has already opened a representative of Myanmar in December 2012. On 9th of September, about a few days before, Exim Bank has opened its branch and launched a representative office. Automobiles. Tata's has a heavy truck assembly plant in Magwe. Not only that, they have got permission to get passenger cars, and they have opened a showroom in Yangon recently. Energy, much has been talked about it. Our big partners are the ONG, CVL, GAIL, SR, Jubilant, and all those people. We have got quite a few blocks for a thing. Paper, J&K has signed an MOU with the Myanmar government to pick up equity and revive the state-owned Tharpang paper and pulp mill. JK's plans are to use part of the production in Myanmar and ship the rest to India. Health, Apollo Groups have launched a telemedicine service in Myanmar, capital Yangon. India has upgraded the Yangon Children's Hospital as well as the Sittwe Children's Hospital. Railways. RITES, or the Rail India Technical, is involved in development of the rail transportation system in Myanmar in supply of railway coaches, locos, and parts. It's interesting to note about a few days before the Sangha Express, a northeastern daily, says that the Northeast Frontier Railway has prepared a master plan to establish railway connectivity between the northeastern states, Bangladesh, and Myanmar. Let us hope it comes true. Now, the Indian airliners can now operate flights to Myanmar as the country has granted traffic rights. They call it as fifth freedom rights or something like that, for paving the way for air connectivity between India and Myanmar. This was announced by the Commerce and Industry Ministry, Anand Sharma, during his visit. I believe SpiceJet has applied for this license. Shipping. A media report indicates that the Shipping Corporation of India has completed a feasibility study to start a liner service between India and Myanmar, another important development. Apparels. India has also offered to help in revival of 300 apparel factories in Myanmar. I think somebody in the morning, the press correspondent, somebody was talking about help there for their women and all that. India has also offered to help in revival of 300 apparel factories in Myanmar. The South India Textile Research Association will provide technical assistance in formulation of revival plans for these factories. India will also cooperate with Myanmar in formulating a common compliance code for standards and also best practices in the factories. Now, in all this trade discussion, there is normally a China factor which is coming. Well, it has always been there. Now, our performance pales when we compare it. Even though India is expanding its economic footprints in Myanmar rapidly, it is no match. China is Myanmar's second largest trading partner, the biggest investor, the top provider of the foreign trade investment. India-Myanmar trade is worth 1.3 million in 2011-12 as to China-Myanmar trade of US 4.4 billion. Anyway, we often say, but the point is, we lack in connectivity. The other thing is, I will quote one of the former ambassadors who said, China has been able to leverage its strengths in Myanmar better than we were able to do, and this really must change. I think that's a lesson for us to learn. Now, before I conclude, I would repeat on one or two things. India-Myanmar trade remains much below the potential, more due to domestic reasons such as the insurgency situation, lack of infrastructure in the northeast, and lack of coordination between the center and the states. The other point also, I think all the press representatives were trying to say, there is lack of awareness about Myanmar in the Indian industry, though it is now picked up. Thanks to the visits of Prime Minister Manmohan Singh as well as President Thein Sein, the position has slightly improved. Now, with the abundance of natural gas, India may have to rethink, I think this was also mentioned by Anand Sharma during his recent visit, of a pipeline either through Bangladesh or through the sea route, if we have to really cash on this. Now, with the removal of economic sanctions by Western nations and the global companies lining up for economic stakes in Myanmar, the economic climate in Myanmar has become all the more competitive. So we are not going to have an easy time if we want to improve. There's an urgent need for us to have a concerted, broad-based, long-term economic policy towards Myanmar. Thank you, sir.
I'm sorry, the 10 minutes became much longer. Anyway, doesn't matter. Hopefully we'll be able to compress the statements from now onwards. Can I call on Mr. Ashish Sonal, CEO Orkash, to speak, make his presentation. Try and make it within 10 minutes if you can.
I'll probably do it faster than that.
Good.
Right. So while the presentation comes on the screen, let me just give you a very, very brief introduction to the company that I represent. This is Orkash. It's a company which works in the space of development, risk management, intelligence, and technologies associated with it. For us, risk management and development are just two sides of the same coin, particularly for economies and countries like Myanmar. Now, I think some of the speakers gave certain data, and I want to go beyond that, and in terms of how what needs to be done should be done, aspects of it, and can be done. Essentially, as I speak, I will be drawing lessons from the kind of work which we have done, and also, the challenges countries like India have faced, as also other countries which are going through radical change, for example, Afghanistan, Iraq, and there are a few other countries of that nature. As per the studies which have been conducted, and these studies are not always very accurate, Myanmar would need to quadruple the size of its economy to reach some semblance of economic stability and social development. Now what that means is that Myanmar must move from, an economy of a size of $50 billion to $200+ billion, and it would take something like, as per assessments, a minimum of 2 decades for that to happen. So that's a long journey, all right? It's a long journey, a lot of challenges, and of course opportunities, and a great burden on the current generation of people in Myanmar. to meet those challenges. Right? Now, the good news of this is that countries in the immediate neighborhood of Myanmar have managed in the past to quadruple their economies in something like 13 to 14 years. And two examples stand out, that is of Thailand and Indonesia. And when they started doing that, they may have been slightly better than where Myanmar is, but not necessarily very much better. So it is possible to be done, and that journey will not be just by leveraging and exploiting opportunities associated with mining or oil and gas or agriculture, which is the current bulwark of the economy. So there is something much more to be done about it. And let's talk about it from a business perspective and from a policy perspective, what needs to be done and how it needs to be done. So I just want to give an example. We may talk about 7 to 8% growth, and we may talk about investments. By the way, to quadruple the economy to $200+ billion, an investment of at least $250 billion is required from foreign sources. To be able to attract that kind of investment and to be able to do it in a sustainable manner, like the Honorable MP was talking about, the conflict with local communities and environments is one of the biggest challenges. But even before that, one of the biggest challenges is how would we create labor for this industry? From where will that labor come? Are we going to import it from neighboring countries of China and Thailand, and then further complicate the ethnic and sectarian strife which is there in the country? Or we would be able to produce local labor. And that is where I think implementation as well as identifying the risk factors and how those risk factors are to be negotiated becomes a very, very important factor. Now, going back to labor, our experience has been in project after project which are greenfield. And India has large underdeveloped areas, so-called the Naxal belt, and those which are very close in their geography, terrain, economy, and the demographics to what Myanmar faces, is that in project after project, investments are done, multi-billion-dollar power plants, mining, infrastructure is attempted, and they get stalled. They get stalled in an economy and in an environment where definitely it's more evolved than where Myanmar is at the moment. And that's quite often is because the risk factors which are non-financial are quite often not being looked into. But any major project, and I say this with confidence, that any major project takes anywhere between 4 to 6 years from a pre-feasibility stage, investment, construction to production, and that's a period long enough to create first generation of local labor pool in the communities this project is going to exist. 4 to 6 years are long enough to target teenagers which are into early adulthood, train them and bring them into the mainstream workforce. It does wonders to the local economy. It does wonders to the motivation and sentiment of the people. But that's the only way. But even in India, project after project, we are not able to do that because we are not looking at a greater inclusive component of it. Now, would the companies do it? Companies are driven by profits. Companies are driven by the factors associated with business and financial viability. And they too often look at the government for the operational viability of labor, supply chains, environment issues, availability of water, and those aspects of it. Although it makes great sense for companies to take ownership of it, because local labor is cheaper than the labor which will come from China or Thailand. And therefore, there are good financial reasons and solid business aspects why these aspects should be attempted. So is the fact that, India has exported mountains of iron ore to China. We're talking millions and millions of tons of iron ore. It would be better to plan not just for the nickel factory, nickel mine, as was being mentioned, but what value addition can be done locally. Right. So those are aspects, and this is to do with pure finances and the vested interests of profit making that businesses very efficiently do. And if we can create a policy framework which holds companies accountable to these aspects, it starts falling into place. And the fact is that it is very difficult to reform the politicians. It's slightly easier to hold the companies accountable for what they're going to do. And if you're giving them a 10 years of tax holiday, I think there are certain policy measures which can be implemented, and it will still be viable, profitable projects. So we need to think slightly beyond the traditional frameworks to bring about these kind of commitments and changes in how things are done. So basically what it takes is assessing the commercial viability, which everybody does, to looking at operational risk viabilities of labor, supply chains, local socio-economic aspects, which will contribute to those projects and create a larger ecosystem. This is where policy comes in. This is where creative thinking and problem solving comes in. And finally creating in an environment of safety. And therefore, maybe it has not been talked about in today's conference. It's very, very important to strengthen the security infrastructure within the country. The policing, the management and handling of insurgencies, from a very genuine aspect to the tactical and operational aspects of it. And those are things, again, to a large extent, I think India has done, and many times successfully, despite the kind of debates happen. And there are lessons. For example, Lal Denga, who was the rebel insurgency leader, could become a chief minister and run a very successful government. So those are models, but it may be sounding theoretical, but there has to be a will and a vision to address these things and to take them on in a very, very practical manner. So given the time, I just would want to spend another few seconds on this slide, which basically gives 3 layers of, what needs to be assessed and done at a project level. I'm not talking national level policy, we are not talking government level policy, we are talking if you have a nickel mine, you have a railroad project, what needs to be done and how those mappings to be done and those issues to be addressed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Could I now call on Mr. Ravi Bhuthalingam, Founder, Chairman, Manas Advisory and member of the CII, who will discuss the economy and investment and connectivity in relation to the India-Myanmar scene. Please.
Thank you, Ambassador. Good afternoon, friends. Since time is short, I will come straight to the point. My connection with Myanmar stems from basically 2 different angles. One is with CII. I've been associated with the Confederation of Indian Industry for many years, and through them looking at development and business growth in new markets such as Mongolia, such as the GMS region in ASEAN, Myanmar, and in the earlier years of its industrial opening, China. That is what I might call the first connectivity. And the second has been my association with the BCIM, that is the Bangladesh, China, India, Myanmar Regional Development Forum, also known as the Kunming Initiative, which is a track 2 venture designed to bring these 4 countries, basically the southwestern part of China, northeastern part of India, along with Bangladesh and Myanmar, into a kind of a growth quadrilateral. So with this background, let me just spell out a few points that come out very strongly without repeating a lot of the very valuable information that has already been placed on the table. The first point is that whilst in fora like today, we tend to look at politics and economics in separate sessions, and they're very neatly divided with lunch in the middle. But in most cases, there is, of course, a very close interaction between them. And this is nothing new as far as the present case is concerned, as we've heard. But even in India's case, there are three variables which I would highlight to you, which must be taken into account in India's economic outreach to Myanmar. One is, of course, Myanmar as the opening to ASEAN provides a great opportunity for India to connect in wider measure through land, sea and air to ASEAN and Myanmar. Second is the domestic compulsions in order to develop the Northeast, which for India is a underdeveloped area apart from having its own political problems. And the third is the China factor. A recent book on Myanmar written by, I think, Thant Minh Tu. The title of the book is Between India and China. That's how he places Myanmar quite correctly geographically. But it is geopolitical, the heading is quite starkly relevant in a geopolitical context as well. So as it were, India and China both have an eye cocked at each other whilst each engages with Myanmar. And overlying all these factors is the fact that India itself is a developing country and resources are scarce, and the amount of resource that India can harness for Myanmar will need to compete with alternative demands within its own territories, not excluding the Northeast. So looking at all this, and there is a wide menu of things that we can do that have been placed on the table, what is it that India really needs to look at? Now, we can't do everything, obviously. So it would make sense, I submit, to focus on our strengths and use our strengths where our productivity is greatest and where the impact for Myanmar and for Myanmar's benefit would be greatest, and where the speed of achievement, the pace of progress will also be fastest. And I would like to submit that this would be in the broad area of what I would call capability development, that is skills, capabilities and abilities. These can fall into various categories. For example, if you take education as a very large area, one thing is very clear, that the English language today has become an absolute necessity for progress anywhere. Just a couple of days ago, by coincidence, one of the largest mass online open courses has started. 9 universities in Britain have gone on the air, and this is a movement, the so-called MOOCs, which are going to be massive. This means online learning is going to become freely available to people all around the world very shortly. But there are two non-tariff barriers. Well, one tariff and one non-tariff. The tariff barriers, of course, you must have connectivity. The non-tariff barrier is that you must know English. So here is an area where India can marshal some of its strengths, because we do have abilities in this area. And I would put it to you that a program of investment, not only by Indian educational and other companies in Myanmar, but also Indian investment in the Northeast, would be a step forward which can be done fairly quickly. And not only investment in English education in the Northeast, but I would go further to add capability to skills and technical education, that is the ITIs rather than the IITs, that is Institutes of Technical Training rather than the Indian Institutes of Technology. At that level, again, both in our Northeast and in Myanmar. Why do I say the Northeast? Because it is much easier to expand capacity where you already have a base. Take Imphal, for example. At one time, Imphal was a seat of learning both for education and for healthcare. No longer so to the same extent. But it would be much cheaper to expand capability in technical education, medical education, pharmacy, nursing in our northeastern states and offer a certain quota of the expanded capacity to countries like Myanmar, Bangladesh, and say Bhutan. The fact today is economic development cannot really stand still at the borders. Countries are integrated whether one likes it or not. Trade will happen informally if not formally, and the sooner one realizes this and uses it as a strength rather than as an opposition, the better it would be. So one proposal I would have is a massive expansion in education, skill and training capability within India and just outside its borders as an offering both to Indian people in the northeast and people of the bordering countries, including Myanmar. The second area of building competence and capabilities is in terms of legislative abilities, business chamber abilities, skills in what you might call business capabilities, that is legal, drafting, commercial law, taxation, and such areas, because these are the fundamental fabrics of building business. Unless the authorities, whether they are government or local or provincial, are adequately skilled in these areas, the contracts that we talked about earlier will continue to be influenced by those who have deeper pockets and maybe other forms of influence. The third area which I would like to look at is tourism. And Myanmar offers tremendous prospects. I won't go into it for lack of time, but it presents all in all a very attractive destination in more ways than one. And tourism can create very large human contact, reputational improvements, and genuine long-term friendships. Fourthly, I would say that we should have a massive scholarship and student exchange program. I think from Myanmar's own history and ours, we find that people who have been students in another country have very long connectivity with it. I think Madam Aung San Suu Kyi's example itself is one that comes to mind, and many others. We have, for example, today in India an excess of engineering capacity. Strange as it may seem, there are lots of engineering colleges today, some of which of course are of dubious quality, but many of them are now under capacity. I would again propose that a huge program of student exchange should be one of the leading priorities for development of capabilities in Myanmar. And finally, I know I'm maybe overstepping the time limit, I would like to propose something that India and China, though one likes to or one has become used to seeing them as rivals, and many people would like to foster that rivalry in many ways. But an intriguing thought, perhaps worthy of examination, is whether Myanmar, for its benefit, can create and promote China-India cooperation in ventures on Myanmar soil. I say this because I have seen myself in Mongolia a very successful strategy of consortia which have worked very well in Mongolia. China, Japan, Korea, for example, European countries along with Japan and Russia, and there are various different combinations. One of the ways in which a partner which has got certain limitations in skills or abilities or knowledge can leverage others who may be better placed is to harness the two of the better placed ones into a partnership. Maybe this is worth study as far as Myanmar is concerned, it would certainly make a very interesting example. I will stop there because time has run out, and I look forward to a discussion on these areas. Thank you very much.
Now we come to the last speaker of the day. May I call on Mr. Atul Shunglu, Assistant Secretary General of FICCI. And he's going to speak on a subject which I have always had a lot to do with, and that's the role of Myanmar in India's Look East policy. Do go ahead.
Because everything that I have here has already been said, so I really don't know whether I have anything to add on the subject. The fact of the matter is that Myanmar now provides the first land crossing into the ASEAN region, which is very important for India, and if the relevant infrastructure can be built, this land crossing can become very, very significant in bringing about a revolution between India and the East. I'd like to give you an example of what's happened in China. They have now created a train between Chengdu to Amsterdam. And this train is able to cross various borders seamlessly, though it has to travel across several countries, but has reduced the travel time between Chengdu or China to Amsterdam by 15 days. It's been reducing that time. So if the relevant infrastructure can be created from the east border between Myanmar and India into Myanmar, Thailand, and so on into the east, this would be a significant achievement. This would, of course, require a considerable amount of investments running into billions of dollars. And this is a thought that I thought I'd leave. Other than that, I'd like to mention, since China has come up several times in the course of the discussion, what is the difference between India and China as far as the Chinese companies are concerned? The Indian companies are privately owned. So they're not an arm of the state, whereas the Chinese companies are state-owned enterprises. So, you know, the Indian companies, when they come into Myanmar, they'll be doing a commercial transaction. They won't have any element of, you know, state, the state part of it, because, you know, when I heard about the problems that you're facing with Chinese companies in Myanmar, they're very similar to what's happening in Africa and across many parts of the world where Chinese companies have entered. I'm not sure, you didn't touch on the labor, whether they're employing any local labor or training the labor. In Africa, I know that local labor is not really employed by these companies. Whereas, you know, if you work with Indian companies, these companies will work as per the norm. They're not an arm of the Ministry of External Affairs. So, you know, they're going to be totally commercial in the enterprise. So I think that's the only thought I'd share with you, because I didn't want to repeat whatever has been said before. Finally, I'd like to mention that we are going to do a major roadshow in May 2014. It's known as the India Products Show in Yangon. So we'll definitely, I look forward to visiting Myanmar at that time, and I hope, I'm sure this is going to be a very, very successful show, because from our delegations that we've taken to Myanmar, there's considerable interest in understanding the country and seeing how various Indian companies can work there. With these few words, thank you, sir. I hope I've stuck to time.
Very good. Thank you. In fact, you have brought it back almost within the time framework. Okay. Now we have a question and answer session. I will reserve the few comments that I intend to make after that. So the floor is open to anyone who's interested in raising it.
My name is Anil Bhatt. I'm a former army officer who spent 5 years in the Northeast as a Ministry of Defense Public Relations officer. I raised a new setup in Manipur and another one in Assam. Having had the pleasure of visiting Moreh in Manipur on the Manipur-Burma border. The pleasures were of having a breakfast of dosas, a lunch of khao sui, and maybe an evening snack of chara bhatura. Because we've had Tamils there for over a century, we've had Khalsas, the Sikhs, there for even longer. And mores, one would very longingly look across and not be able to travel because one was still in government service. But the average citizen can go across and come back on the same day. Some things which are coming, this is a very, very major time when Myanmar, India cooperation can really get going. But what is going to come in a very major way as a stumbling block is the Indian insurgent groups or insurgent turned terrorist groups which are getting sanctuary there, which are enjoying sanctuary there for decades now. There are many of the Manipuri groups there, and there's a very major one of Assam, the ULFA, the United Liberation Front of Assam, which has enjoyed a lot of support from Pakistan's ISI stationed in Bangladesh. Between these and the Burmese army, there has always also been a lot of movement of drugs and illicit weapons. The look east policy that we refer to and the look west policy which Mr. Zhao Zhao referred to has got a lot in it, but this is one stumbling block, and the other stumbling block is the insurgent groups in Myanmar itself.
There is a difference between a project involvement, which you refer to as the Kaladan multimodal project, where there hasn't been enough exchange between the local communities and the project authorities. That is a public sector run and managed project, and maybe because it's been on a government-to-government basis, the local element has not come into it. And I'm sure that the efforts that you've been making in that respect will certainly have some influence in determining what the Government of India and the public sector concern would take into account and try and sort of establish some kind of understanding. The other important aspect which you referred to is the environment aspect, the problems that, let us say, the forest growth in your territory, in your state might be impacted on. I think that's a very serious matter. It's serious in the sense that there are various ways of ensuring that you do not disturb the environment beyond reasonable levels. And I think that an exchange between the project authorities and the local communities again would be useful in this respect. The second aspect of it which you also brought in, and I assume that these are in a sense interrelated, is the business of establishing some kind of an industrial and business relationship. I think it's almost a natural. I would even go further. I know that the Chin state has had a tradition of growing of horticulture, and obviously that is another area where, let us say, things like agro-processing, etc., can come in. So apart from garments, apart from a timber-based industry, which incidentally I would like to point out is very much part of the understanding that was given in the briefings that the Prime Minister of India took before he visited Myanmar last year. I happened to chair a core group where we went into this whole thing, and one of the areas of linking the developmental aspects of the northeast of India and the adjoining areas, at least of Myanmar, was that there would be a natural advantage in establishing a special economic zone which would take the local raw materials into account to make sure that there is value addition and there is employment creation. And timber obviously was one of the major factors because it's relevant. India is very short, as you know, of timber and timber-based products. So this automatically becomes a major area, and it is very much part of what the Indian side definitely has in mind, because it serves the purpose of development in the northeast, and it also serves the purpose of establishing a proper cooperative industrial environment between the two countries. I thought I'd just draw attention to these 2-3 points. I would like to also point out that doing business in any country requires a total understanding of the local environment, the way in which people think. It's not just good enough to start imagining that because maybe labor availability, even though unskilled, is at a lower value, that that in itself is a major element in determining an investment decision. The real problem that you have to understand is how do the people react to your establishing any kind of business in that area. Because you are not only in the border development agreement between India and Myanmar, we are not talking about investment in industrial estates, let's say, around Yangon, where you have an urban environment within which there can be many commonalities. But you are talking about establishing small industries and institutional support systems in what are basically rural areas or semi-urban areas. And it is in that context that the border development agreement also takes into account not just the economic aspects, but the social development aspects too. So health, in other words, public health, issues of education, issues of providing the kind of support systems like extension services in agricultural areas, etc., come into play. And tied to that is the establishment of industry where, like, let's say, it's no use consistently following the pattern of, let's say, providing a line of credit or even an assistance program where you establish, let's say, a certain number of tractors and harvesters, etc., being given. That's a good beginning. But the ultimate analysis is that that kind of product should become part of the economy of the region. And so it should lead to an investment in keeping with the requirements, the developmental requirements and the social development requirements that have come to be established and have been discussed between the two governments, and there's a focus area that has been established. So I think there are many areas where things have been established in principle. It's only an issue of putting them into the implementation format, and very evidently any implementation of these arrangements in the rural areas will have to take into account what is the sentiment of the people out there. So that's an important element. Now, may I also point out that I think a reference was made to the fact that India, being a federal entity, both constitutionally and in both the political and economic dimensions of our nationhood, that it would make sense for Myanmar's parliamentarians and the official side of Myanmar having an understanding of how the federal system in India works. I had made a reference to this a little earlier before lunch, but the fact of the matter is that what I had understood, and that understanding did not change even after I left my assignment in Yangon, that in the eyes of the military, even federalism is equated to the possibility of secession. Now, and even if you read the present constitution, you can see that this element is very much there in the mind of the people who not only drafted the constitution but adopted the constitution. Now, I think the Indian example would serve as a very good example to show that federalism is not a route through which somebody can start functioning in the environment of establishing a secessionist undertaking. We have insurgencies in our northeast, which is in fact a part of the cooperation between the two countries also, to try and sort of prevent space being given to these insurgencies. But in those states, whether it is Mizoram, which is no longer insurgency driven, or Manipur, or Nagaland, all of them have established governments through the electoral process. And the governments are not functioning outside the Constitution of India. So the federal system that India has been following since 1950, in effect, is something that certainly, and as we do have a relationship where parliamentarians are supposed to get, interact, and you get the advantages of the procedural experiences and expertise that Indian parliamentarians have evolved over the decades. This is an obvious area where parliamentarians from Myanmar, where the majority of the parliamentarians are obviously in any delegation would also be from the ruling regime, they can see for themselves. And I'm not saying that you take them to Rajasthan or something where there is no such problem. Take them to the northeast. Show them what is happening in those states. So this is something which I think from your side, with your colleagues in Parliament, you can kind of push across. And I'm sure your counterparts with whom you interact, I mean, you, if I'm not wrong, mentioned that you've been here 3 or 4 times now, officially. So I think this is something that can easily be established. If there is anything that India should keep in mind, and the business community in India should keep in mind, is that a joint venture in Myanmar in today's environment would amount to the fact that you have very limited availabilities of partners on the other side, because the area has not really been there long enough in terms of private sector parties who have the necessary expertise. Now, like, for instance, if an automobile industry is to get established on a joint venture basis, the local arrangement, the local partner, is something that you will have to look at very carefully, because as of today, the bulk of the organized sector in terms of industrial availability for joint ventures would be people who also have links with the armed forces. There may be very few people that you can find outside that. So I'm just drawing this as, flagging this as a possible red line, that you have to be very careful that in your partnerships you do not hurt anybody in the process, which, if I am not wrong, is not something that the Chinese side obviously takes into account. For them it is okay to do business purely within an official context. So with all that, I think we have more or less come to the end. Yeah. Is there anything else that...
If they want to ask any questions, please.
Well, I'll pass it on to you with pleasure.
Thank you very much, sir. Grateful to you for steering the session so adroitly. We have a few minutes, so what I will do is, before we go for tea, I'd like to ask our Myanmarese visitors, guests.
Can I make one clarification?
Please, please.
There is not a word as such Myanmarese. This I've been saying to all my Indian friends
apologize.
also. Please say Myanmar. Country is Myanmar and people is Myanmar. So Burmese is Burmese, but there is no as such Myanmarese. So from now on, let us just omit the word Myanmarese, but let us say Myanmar.
Point taken very firmly, but listen, why don't you come up, Alana? I wanted you to also speak. You want to sit somewhere, come this side.
That's okay.
No, I'm saying we're concluding, so please come here. Come here. No, you can come here, Doctor. Please sit down. Listen, we need the NLD in full focus. You sit here. Alana, come and sit here. She's an ex-JNU scholar, so I know them very well. Please come and sit down. Huh? No, not at all. They're all very gifted people, and they, sort of. But may I, Anil, just 1 second.
No, that's a different issue.
Yeah.
It's not a...
Okay.
Burma or
Burma, no problem. But this what Myanmar
Yeah, Myanmar is.
that doesn't make sense.
No, please don't take it amiss. I think it is just a turn of phrase. But what I wanted to say is now, very correctly, that our guests and our visitors who have come from Myanmar and the others who are represented here, actually, I did want to sort of request our younger colleagues, I see many of them sitting, that we have not heard a word from you. And much of today's effort was really directed to, as I keep saying, stakeholders of tomorrow. There are many people who are sitting, well, not many. Some of us, you can see us by our beards. We have more yesterdays than tomorrows. I count Ambassador Malik and myself in that. But some of you sitting at the back, you are the stakeholders. You have a very bright, shall we say, future ahead of you. So if you would like to share some of your thoughts, I would urge you all to please identify yourself and tell us what you think about the subject that we are discussing, which is changes in Myanmar, and what are the kind of possibilities, areas that India could also participate, cooperate in this. So I'll give you all a few minutes. If any of you would like to say something, please raise your hand, come up near a mic, and we'd be very happy to listen to you. But I will request our senior members to come back in a moment or so. But yes, sir, you want to say something?
Maybe I can. Could I get 1 minute? I think this morning I forget to tell our external secretary that whatever we get from grant from India government or another international affairs, especially for my border development, like Chin Hills development, poverty reduction. All the grant and money are only going to the state minister's big bag, and then the minister of forestry came to our place, and he is responsible for the ruling party and the community, the people, my people. They don't understand that this grant, this money has come from you, from India or Australia or Germany or else anywhere. But they have a misconception that that was granted by the minister of our central government. So this is, I would like to inform what we have, faced. Whatever you give us, grant or, or funded or, so this also, it will become bigger and bigger issue. Because even for the village-to-village connection construction, I know that we got some money from India government for the health sector and primary education. But there were lots of signboard. It is written that gift from the minister of like this. So you have to tell about, government to government, whatever you give the grant. It is not nice to have a look that a party leader is climbing to our mountains and with a backpack like a Santa Claus. And my people, they know that it's the Santa Claus is coming again like this. So this is very important, I know. Yeah. But this morning I forget to tell. Oh yes, yeah.
Appropriately conveyed. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, now can I come back to the point I was making? Would any of our younger colleagues like to say something? Sir, would you switch off your mic there, please? Just switch off his mic. Yeah. Please come up. I'm very glad that. Identify yourself. Please share your comments.
Okay, thank you very much. I thought I would not have a chance to speak here. My name is Sang Hin Lian, and I'm an ex-president of Chin Student Union, Delhi, and I just completed my Bachelor of Honors Political Science from Delhi University. And I'd like to mention a little bit what Professor Koshal has given an opinion. He mentioned that the democratization process in the country is highly dependent on the internal dynamic rather than the outside pressure. But I have an opinion that the pressure from outside is still very important, because by looking at the history of Burma, since from 1962 up to the Ne Win government has seized the power or military coup, because of the pressure from Western or neighboring country, economic sanction, blockage, after 1990, they cannot steal. The military government cannot still extend their power because of those blockades from the neighboring country or the Western. So what I would like to mention is the pressure from India or other country. It's still very important in the process of this democratization in Burma. And as I said, I studied in Delhi University, and in final year we studied foreign policy, Indian foreign policy. What I wonder is that such a neighboring country, a very close country, Burma, even the word Myanmar is not aware of by many Indian students. So what I thought is India has a very important policy, which is Look East policy. It is very important to study or to at least have a very small limitation of syllabus in such a university. So I'd like to add that point. Thank you very much.
Thank you. No, thank you. I think very useful inputs. Is there anybody else who would like to share or say something? Yeah, please come up and use the mic and just identify yourself. Very good to hear your voices.
Zhao Ji. I am from Kachin state of Burma. Currently now I am studying in northeast state of India. I am pursuing my Bachelor of Social Work. Currently I am in 5th semester. As today, very glad to be here and then heard about your opinion on how to change Burma and Myanmar. The point I want to say is that education. I want to more focus on education. As Nelson Mandela said, that education is the most powerful weapon that can change the world or the people minds. As I heard about that Indian government, how the policy on neighbor country like Bhutan, Bangladesh, and Tibetan refugee. Some of the students, they said that we study together. They said that they can come and study India with the education fee, the same with Indian students. So how privileged for them. But we Myanmar students, now just only some of the students from Myanmar, we study in India, but we had to pay the fee like foreign students. Yes, it's very, how to say, it's very an opportunity for us. It's, I want to request is that if your Indian government could provide us like we tribal people or minority people, like Kachin, Kaya, Kayin, Chin, Mun, Rakhine, Shan. But Burma, they got a lot of opportunity in Central, also in the other country also, as well. But we minority people, we are much opportunity on education because we are far away from the center of Burma, center from Burma. So I want to request each you Indian government or you people can give a chance to like tribal people, like minority people, like Kachin, Kaya, Kayin, Chin, Mun, Rakhine Shan. Each Indian government can give us a chance to like the fee, education fee, like Burma, like Indian student. Then we minority people can surely come and study India so that we can get a lot of opportunity and a lot of education knowledge from India, like your students. Thank you.
Okay, is there anyone else who wants to, but quickly 4:30 we have to wind up the room. Please.
No, I'm a little intrigued by the fact that you have to pay fees that are outside the normal fees. I would certainly raise this. But there's one element which you have to take into account. There's no way that the government of India can establish scholarships in the name of communities. We are giving 500 scholarships to Myanmar students under our I-Tech program. So that is already established. Now, even if we increase this, it will be to the government of Myanmar. We cannot insist to interfere in the internal matters of a country by saying that, you know, so many scholarships should go to Kachins and so many to Chen, etc. That we cannot do. That has to be done internally. That is something that you'll have to. But certainly the fact that those who do come across into, let's say, the northeast states of India, that is something that India can certainly take into account. That's something which I would take up.
Thank you. Anyway, I'm glad you brought this point up, and I'm sure that this will be referred to the ministry in the appropriate manner. Is there any other of the younger colleagues who want to say something? Or okay, because we have to hand over this room by 4:30. What I will do is to pull this all together and thank all of you. Before I do that, may I make 2-3 sort of suggestions in terms of the day's proceedings, and then I'll also ask Dr. Alana if she wants to say something on behalf of BCD. Okay. First is, you know, we've had a fairly rich and productive discussion since this morning. We had a suggestion which came up in the lunch break. Some people had suggested that the presentations that were made both before lunch and after lunch, if you are willing to share it with us, we have a website, both as far as the SPS is concerned, the BCD, and we also have something called the South Asia Monitor. We'd be very happy to carry that, but you might want to visit your presentation again and make it compatible either for a website. And if the response is, you know, shall we say, robust, we can also consider bringing out a small publication, you know, which would really put together all that we have said and try and look at some kind of a way ahead in which many of these points can be included, including this looking at education and what is the way in which it can be harmonized. So that is one suggestion. You have the email IDs, both of the BCD and of the SPS. So please feel free. Any of our colleagues will be happy to help you. And related to this is also to introduce all of you, irrespective of your affiliation and where you are currently located, to say that as part of both this effort of SPS, BCD and the IIC, we have 2 or 3 websites. You can visit them. And particularly, I'd like to draw your attention to something called the South Asia Monitor, which is now trying to expand its scope and look at what we are now calling as Southern Asian policy-related issues. So we would be very keen to encourage participation from colleagues from Myanmar and other parts of the region, and to sustain this, saying that this should not be a one-off, just as today's conference we hope is not a one-off. And please become stakeholders in this effort. In the pre-lunch session, there was talk about the media and the fact that there is inadequate awareness about what is happening on either side. So this is one platform, one forum So we would encourage all of you, you can bring up your issues. If you think that these have to be referred to either Delhi or some part of the northeastern states, to the extent that we can, we'll try and enable that. And if there is any particular area or domain, which is of interest to you, where you feel that there are some takeaways that need to be done either here or elsewhere, please identify them, because each of these need to be pursued, including what you are saying. I'd urge you to send an email to one of us, or you can send it to Ambassador Malik, and then we will see what we can, so that you have a feeling that today's effort has not been in vain, and that this has not just been, shall we say, I have spent about 25 years of my life in a think tank, but I keep saying that having done the thinking, and if I may say in lighter vein, the tanking, that think tanks have to now become do groups. So even if you pick up 1 or 2 areas, and we are able to do something, we have a sense of satisfaction. And in the same vein, I want to also draw your attention to one area that we are all working on now, which is 2014 is going to mark 100 years of World War I. Now there is a small attempt here and in other parts of what you might call as the erstwhile British India to try and recall and see if there is any aspect of participation or presence of World War I that we could recall. So to that extent, if there is anyone who is into military history and Burma's own contribution or the contribution of the people, it's a very, as I said, bloody period to recall. But from here, there is a sense that there was a large human resource that had been represented in that particular war. So this is devoid of politics. This is not about trying to critique who did what to whom 100 years ago, but to recall the human contribution, the human dimension. So I just thought I would flag that, because the erstwhile Burma also had a very, very important locus. So if there is anything that you all have, or you all can put us in touch, we'd be happy. And the last point is really specific to the media. I think the point that you had, many of the aspects that you had raised. If you have time, our colleagues here have already said that we'd be happy to sort of extend this engagement, both what Tarun Basu said and what Rashmi had said this morning. So I thought I would say that let's try and disaggregate this into specifics. And on that note, I want to thank all of you, thank those who have contributed by discussion and by participation, thank our chairs, Rashmi and Ambassador Malik, for steering the session. And if there's any aspect that we can do better for next time, please let us know. I have made one saying that do not use a certain word. So that I have already noted for the next time. But if there's any other aspect that we can do better, please feel free to let us know. And I'd be failing in my duties if I did not acknowledge BCD and Dr. Alana Golmai's dynamic contribution, and all my colleagues at SPS and the India International Center for, as I said, helping us to pull this all together. There may have been a few sort of wrinkles and some areas that, as I said, sincerely mean that we could have done better. Let us know, feel free, and we'll do this, as I said, better next time.